Good evening. I'd like to call the regular monthly meeting to order. Would everyone please rise with the prayer and the pledge of allegiance?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day and for allowing us to gather here in the interest of our children. We thank you for keeping this community safe over this past hurricane season and hopefully continue to do so this week. We ask a special blessing on our seniors who received their rings last Friday. Please be with them as they complete their last year with us and as they make those most important decisions that will guide their adult lives. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Mr. England, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Ms. Voce.
Ms. Acevedo? Here. Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Egan?
Here.
Ms. Jackson?
Here.
Ms. Lemoyne is not with us. Mr. England?
Here.
Mrs. Dysart?
Here.
Mr. Long and Mr. Smith are not here. Mr. Warner?
Here.
And Ms. White?
Here. Thank you, Ms. Voce. Before we go on to the regular agenda items, at this time, I would like to take point of privilege and to have a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Frank Orderer. Mr. Orderer recently passed, and he was not only a teacher for many years, he was an administrator, he was a school board member, and he was a superintendent of this board. And many of my fellow board members had the privilege of working, along with myself, of working with Frank Orderer, who was a gem of a person and such a professional educator and just a wonderful man. We used to call him the idea man, actually, because he would come up with some great ideas for our school district. And he's a great family man, and he was just a wonderful, wonderful person, and he will be dearly missed. And our deepest condolences and heartfelt sympathies go out to to Miss Audrey and to the entire Orderer family. So if we would take a moment of silence at this time. Thank you. And I want to also say he was a dear friend to so many of us. Mr. England.
Thank you, Ms. Dysart. I worked along with Frank Orderer for many years, just like yourself, and quite a few of this board members here. And he was one of a kind. And what this parish really needs is more Frank Orderers. You know, that's the way I feel about it, because he was that type of a gentleman. And like you said, he came up with some ideas, but Ms. Fauché put him in his place a few times. She pulled those reins back, and so, but he was a good man. You know, he was all for the kids, he was for the school system, and it's a tremendous loss to this parish, really is. And my condolences go out to the Orderer family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. England. Mr. Campbell.
We honored him by naming this place Frank's Place.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for reminding us of that.
He was my tax man, too.
And this little cafe was his idea, the idea man, and it definitely served a wonderful purpose to many. Ms. Voce.
Okay, and then I guess I just have to add, back in 1971, in the fall of 71, Frank and I walked in at the same time as teachers at Shellman High School. So in August of 1971, our first days here in St. Bernard Parish as teachers, we were together. And as, developed a friendship over the last 50 years that has been extremely very personal friendship as well as a professional friendship. But while he was at Shellman High School, as you called him, the idea man, you just talked to Debbie Goday, who is still there, who worked with him in the business department. And over his desk, we put up a sign that says, "Another order idea bombs." But it was just a funny little commentary, because Frank always had a new idea, an idea every day. And many of them took root and have been institutionalized both at the high school and throughout our school system. So wonderful man, wonderful family man, and tremendous educator, and a real people person who could bring different groups together, different entities together, different people together. So we had a great deal of love and respect for him. And on our website, if people would log on, in 2004, when he retired, we did a very short video about Frank at his retirement party. And much of what was said there is very appropriate even today, so we have put it on the website. So I would encourage everybody who knew Frank to just log on and play that video. I think it'll bring back some fond memories, as well as do tribute to a man who contributed greatly, not only to the school system, as you said, Ms. Dysart, with all the positions that he held, but also to the community in St. Bernard, because he was also on the Parish Council, on the Foundation Board for Nunez Community College, and did a lot of community work as well as work within the St. Bernard Parish Schools. So very influential within the community of St. Bernard. So.
Thank you, Ms. Wojcik. Anyone else? Okay. First item on the agenda is the presentation of the 2019-2020 Financial Compliance Report. Good evening, Mr. Fernandez.
Good evening. In your package, you have our comprehensive annual financial report for 2019-2020. We just recently completed our audit of these financial statements, and we have Mickey Simon of the firm of Laporte CPAs with us today, and he's going to present their results from the audit. So I'm just going to call him up and let him make his presentation.
Thank you, David. First, I'd like to express appreciation for the opportunity to work with the school board, especially when we get to work with such a fine staff and being able to, have that audit go so smoothly. You guys like a smooth audit, but so do we, quite frankly. And so I just appreciate all the efforts of David and his staff for making that happen. So I'll start with a broad overview, and that is that it's all good news again. So that's good. Where it starts is if we just kind of dive right in, I'll take you through some of our opinions and some brief financial statement discussion, but it starts on page 1, really, which is where it's the opinion on the financial statements. So this discusses management's responsibility for the financial statements, our responsibility as auditors, and then on page 2 is where our opinion lies in the paragraph titled Opinions, and that's basically says that these financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So there's the meat of it, saying that the financial statements are fairly presented. So I'll take you through some more reports in just a minute, but next I'd like to go through just the general fund, being the main operating fund of the organization. That's on page 26. So the general fund, this is the balance sheet for the general fund that shows total assets of $33.9 million. This is an increase of $2.7 million from the previous year. Total liabilities of $10.8 million, which is an increase of around $830,000. That leaves a total fund balance of $23.1 million, which increased $1.9 million from the previous year. The unassigned piece is the piece of the fund balance that, of course, can be used for anything. You see some other items there that are assigned, but the unassigned piece is a piece that would be used to, indicate what's sort of unreserved or unassigned. So that unassigned fund balance represents essentially 70 days of operating expenditures. The GFOA, which is the Government Financial Officers Association, sort of says that 60 days is a good benchmark, so you guys are right there just above that, so that's a healthy place to be. It also represents 18% of 2020's total revenues, which is also slightly above another benchmark, which is sort of put out by the state of Louisiana. So again, that indicates that the unassigned fund balance is healthy. Let me take you to the general fund statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. That's page 30. So if you kind of flip 2 pages, you'll find that. What we see there, again, just looking at the totals, the total revenues of about $78.8 million, which is an increase of $4.5 million from last year. The total expenditures also rose to $74.4 million, rose by about $3 million. And then once you look at the transfers, then you get to that total change in fund balance that I mentioned earlier of $1.9 million, an increase of $1.9 million. So that's the balance sheet and the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, the 2 main financial statements of the general fund. If I were to point to, usually we cover things that might have changed in the footnotes. So the only thing that I would say is different this year that I would kind of point to is, given the current environment, most readers of financial statements would expect to see, especially governmental financial statements, would expect to see some discussion of the impact of COVID-19. So that is discussed in footnote 13F. I'll just sort of summarize it so you don't have to read it, but it's just really saying that there was no significant impact on the revenues of the organization. There were some federal grants awarded that could be used into the future with regard to the costs associated with COVID-19. But really, it's just more of a footnote about the fact that the impact on the economy as a whole, there is some uncertainty out there. So that's just, like I said, something that would be expected to be seen, and that's disclosed in that footnote. And also, David did a wonderful job discussing it in the management discussion and analysis, which is actually before the financial statements on pages 19 and 20. But again, I won't dive into details of that. It's just a good discussion I wanted to bring up to you guys. So now we'll get to some of those other reports that I mentioned previously. So these are more of the qualitative factors, if you will, not so much the numbers and the ins and outs of the dollars, but if we look at the qualitative factors. So I'll take you really kind of towards the back now and go on page 192. It's really way far to the back, actually. But no less important. This is the opinion on page 192. It takes up 2 pages, but it discusses a couple of things. The first is the internal controls over financial reporting. We are tasked with, under governmental auditing standards, specifically because you're a governmental entity, we have additional auditing standards. So having applied those standards in this audit, this report comes out of that, and it says that due to our additional testing, there were no deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control over financial reporting. So again, good news, right? And we noted no instances of non-compliance when we tested certain areas of compliance that we do every year. There were no issues there with non-compliance. So that's what this report in summary says. The next opinion is, if you flip 1 page, this is what we call our uniform guidance report. And this one is really over all the federal money that the school board receives. And so this discusses in a very similar way the compliance. It says that we noted no non-compliance with regard to the federal monies. It says that the internal controls, not over financial reporting, but over compliance, because the entity has to have controls to make sure that we stay in compliance. There were no issues or no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies with that internal control area either over compliance. It discusses an unmodified opinion on the schedule of expenditures or federal awards. It's a mouthful, but it's essentially the list of federal dollars that you receive. And that list of federal awards is actually, if you flip 2 more pages to page 198, you'll see that there. And that total of federal dollars is 12.2 million. So that's what our uniform guidance report is saying, we're giving an unmodified opinion on. And then if you were to go 2 more pages to page 201, this is just really a summary of all the results that I kind of just discussed. But one thing I would just, I normally bring up is which federal programs we tested. Those are set up in our industry to where when we come across that list of awards, it's our job to sort of assess risk on that list and sort of test them on a almost rotating basis, if you were to kind of look at it that way, to where, a lot of different programs get covered over several years. This year, the programs that we tested were Special Education Cluster, the Head Start Program, and the Louisiana School Mental Health Project. So that's listed there on that page 201 that I just mentioned. Another opinion. Seems like auditors are opinionated, huh? That's on page 204. Now this is not really necessarily audit work. It's something called agreed upon procedures that the BESI sort of mandates that we do over the data that gets sent to them. So we did those procedures, and this report will show that there were no differences noted in the data. So we basically test that underlying data versus the support for that, and there were no differences. So that's good news. I know I'm kind of saying some auditor speak right now, but it's saying no differences were noted. That's good. That's a good report. The one opinion that is, we've been giving in previous years, but is not here this year, that is a statewide agreed upon procedures engagement that the LLA, the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, had been requiring in years past. I think the last 3 or 4 years they've required. This year, due to COVID, they sort of put a hiatus on that. They did not require it this year, so there's no report on that this year, just to let you know. Finally, I have just, it's a letter that I believe David said he included in your packets. It's just a letter that is a required communication from us to you as the board, certain elements of the audit, how did they go. So I'll just sort of cover the highlights. Don't feel like you have to read along. But in essence, that letter says that first, there were no new accounting policies adopted this year, and the application of existing accounting policies did not change this year. Sort of another relief that came with COVID-19 was there was a accounting guidance that would have been enacted this year, but it was delayed also for a year. So that was not implemented accordingly. We noted no transactions entered into by the school board during the year for which there is a lack of authoritative guidance. All significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. We discussed the estimates in the financial statements. That's the pension estimate, the post-employment benefits estimate, the estimate for workers' comp claims liabilities, and just that we evaluated those factors and assumptions that go into those estimates and deemed that they were reasonable. There were no sensitive disclosures. The disclosures were neutral, consistent, and clear. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management and performing the completion of our audit. There were no significant corrected or uncorrected journal entries, as usual. We are pleased to report that no disagreements arose during the course of our audit, disagreements with management meaning, and then to our knowledge, there were no consultations from management to other accountants. That's what we would call opinion shopping. If they disagreed with something we said and they went out asking other auditors, to our knowledge, none of that happened. So at this point, that's really just wrapping up my presentation. So I know I'll take any questions if you guys have any about what we've discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Simon.
Sure.
Questions? Mr. Warner?
I just, I want to say, congratulations, Mr. Fernandez, on all the positive opinions. And I just wanted to ask about, on page 6, it says our long-term debt, the school board's total debt increased to $24,970,000. It was an increase of 15.8%. Can you give us an explanation on that?
The debt, as you know, we have no general obligation debt. We have no actual debt that we're paying on. The debt has to do with compensated absences and related debt for pension liability and other post-employment benefits liability. These are things that we pay over time through our contributions to the retirement system, through our premiums to the group insurance, and their long-term liabilities, which usually just show up in the financial statements, but with the implementation of GASB 34, you have to recognize the whole potential liability into the future. So
Explain,
when
can you be specific about that again? I understand it, but for some of the other newer board members.
Okay. Basically, long-term debt is basically either general obligation debt or sales tax debt, which are when you sell bonds and you pay them off during the year, which we don't have any of that debt anymore. We paid that off a couple of years ago. We're debt-free in that respect. But it also includes obligations that you might have. Some of it is for compensated absences, like sick leave or vacation leave that the employees earn but haven't taken. So you have to incur a debt for that. The employees might not take that. They might take it in future periods, but you have to incur at June 30th every year an estimate of how much that debt is. It's things that they're going to take in the future, but it's a liability to the school system. It's nothing that we're going to monetarily pay out right now, but it's something for the future. The same thing for pension obligations and other post-employment benefits, which is basically retiree insurance, group insurance. You have to come up with an estimate of what the present value of those future liabilities are, even though you're not going to pay them for years and years in the future. So we might have an employee that has worked for us for 5 years or 10 years, and they have a vested interest in retirement, but they're not going to retire for another 20 years. Well, we have to consider what that future liability is going to be and reflect that in our financial statements. It really has no correlation on the strength of the school system now. It goes into those first two statements, A and B, which are government-wide statements, which reflect capital assets and long-term debt and things like that. So it's a liability for the future, which we're going to pay one day, but we have to recognize it in our current financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Okay.
Also, with our virtual option,
Yes.
and I know we increased some expenses on that,
Yes.
but we also received some additional, under the CARES Act, we received some additional funds for that.
Yes, sir. We did receive some funds for the CARES Act, and Ms. Voce might want to expand on that.
Well, we received monies, under the CARES Act, and the first call on the monies had to do with the virtual options for children. So we had to make sure that we achieved, one of our goals was to achieve 1-to-1 ratio for devices for kids. So we have purchased enough Chromebooks and technology devices to the point we are 1-to-1 for all students in St. Bernard Parish, pre-K through 12th grade. Now, of course, we're going to have to replenish this as it goes along, but that initial investment was made to complete that process using some of the CARES Act money. We're also obligated to provide, to the long extent possible, internet access for students who do not currently have internet access, which we have accomplished right now at the high school level, that if a student didn't have internet access at home, we provided the hotspots for them to achieve that because they're on the hybrid model. So when they're not in school and they're at home, they're all able to access the internet. We have additional hotspots if we need it for elementary and middle, for those students who are exercising the 100% virtual option. So as of right now, as we know, the families have the option to send their children to in-school learning or to do it 100% virtually. If they choose the 100% and they don't have a device or access, we use that money to provide those devices and that access. Then we had to purchase software for online learning, which is a significant cost, which we use the CARES Act money for. And not just a primary online software program, but there are software online materials for many of the current courses that we teach. For example, if we use a curriculum springboard, there's an online version of that we had to add on for our students to access. We did that for several of our software programs. For the non-core areas, especially in many of the CTE programs, we provided additional online software for them. For our students who are attending Nunez Community College through dual enrollment, we make sure that they have access. So a great deal of the CARES Act money went to and is continuing to go to the technology, the access, the online programs, and those devices, as well as the sanitation and cleaning and all of the excess costs associated with COVID. So as you heard Mr. Simon talk about right now, we're noting the impact of COVID on the finances of the school system. You first look from the revenue side and you see that here in St. Bernard Parish right now, the sales tax is holding strong. We haven't seen any issues with that or with the property taxes. At the state level, we all are hearing of the financial problems at the state level once those federal funds have been exhausted that they've been using to plug the gaps. There will be discussion as to how they're going to balance the state budget, which then could impact our largest source of funding for the school, which is the MFP. So that's what we're holding our breath for, to see exactly how that may impact in this coming year. But we're holding strong using the CARES Act money to take care of those additional expenses at the time we have now. We had to spend some monies on that when we had to feed every child that last quarter of the last school year and then into the summer with the increased costs of the employees, cafeteria workers, our custodians. When the schools were shut down, we still had to continue to operate those particular services. So we are very judiciously planning. We have not been, we're holding our own in terms of our revenues and expenditures for our regular operating budget right now, and we're filling in the excess costs with those CARES money. When that runs out, we're hoping by that time that we get back to a more normal existence, and hoping that a vaccine will be in place and that we can go back to, I guess, what we consider the old normal as opposed to this new normal that we're operating in. So financially, we're fine at this point. But we're keeping an eye as to how especially the state finances may impact us, because that is the largest source of funding we have for our school system, is that MFP. And if that is affected in any way, then that's going to have a significant negative impact on our operation that we would have to make accommodations for in terms of taking a much stronger look at what our expenditures are.
Thank you, Mrs. Boche, and I could see that, still maintaining a fairly healthy fund balance through all this
Mm-hmm.
is really, it
Well,
says
that's
a
it,
lot.
through June 30th, and then, well, we did plan for that, and that CARES money came in right at that time. So we've been operating off of that for these excess costs, so.
Right, fingers crossed, but other than that, it's great opinions by the auditor. Congratulations, Mr. Fernandez, on doing a great job.
Thank you.
And we'll just keep our fingers crossed in the future, and hopefully we can you know, keep making those, keep the revenue up to make those expenditures for some of these additional programs that we're paying for in this pandemic.
Anyone else? Ms. Jackson?
Do we have any idea when some of the money for the ITEP votes will impact? When
I
should we
think-
start
I
seeing
think-
some revenue from
I
that?
think some of it is already included. As you might notice, ad valorem taxes went up this last year. Some of it's included in that, and I think the last one, I think it might be coming on this year. I think it's coming on this year, so some of it we've already seen,
Okay,
and some of it's probably coming.
because I'm sure that helps fill some holes in the budget for sure. Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
Anyone else? I guess the silver lining of, there's, the silver lining of Corona or COVID-19 is that we did receive some additional funds and we were able to get Chromebooks for every student in our system. That was an idea that Mr. Order had years ago, and to see it come to fruition is something, so I just wanted to mention that. And I just want to thank Mr. Simon, thank you for your report, and thank you to Laporte and all the auditors that work so closely with Mr. Fernandez. We appreciate the cooperative work that you did alongside Mr. Fernandez. And it's great that we had yet another good news report. So thank you very much. Mr. Fernandez, congratulations to you and your staff, your small staff, and on a job well done in presenting the audit to the auditors. And, the whole book looks great as usual, and we thank you for all, your hard work and your small staff. We appreciate it.
Thank
Your
you,
diligence.
and it is a team effort, and just even beyond my staff. And I also have to recognize, you said, you commented on the look at the statements. Again, the presentation of the statements, the covers, the divider pages that make it look so good were done by Miss Cindy England in our office. She puts a lot of work into this every year to make it look good. We provide all the internal information and the numbers and the words, but she's the one that makes it look really nice. And we are going to submit this again for the GFOA and ASBIL awards, and I'm confident we'll receive them for the 28th year.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks to Miss Cindy England also. Thank you so much. Ms. Boche?
Yeah, and I say this every year, and I know I sound like a broken record, and I have to, congratulate all of our people. And I do wanna make reference as well as while Mickey Simon is here, our auditors, we do have a tremendous working relationship with them. It's been a very good partnership for many, many years. But when you look at this CAFR, or the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, it's 210 pages. And when you sit there, I'm probably one of the few people that have actually read it. But you look at it, and sometimes your eyes glaze over with all the numbers on it and all the words on it. But you have to understand, this report is put together completely by our staff, by David Fernandez and the people that he works with. But he's primarily responsible for this entire document, or the creation of the document, and the management analysis, which I think Mr. Simon referred to. The management discussion and analysis is very, very good, and David put that together and wrote that section, especially with a complete overview of this. But, and I think Mr. Simon will verify, there are very few entities that go into audit where the entity hands them the CAFR done completely. Where in many cases, and if you want to verify that, Mr. Simon, that the auditors have to spend time in actually assembling and helping put together these documents.
Correct.
Could you make a brief comment on that? Because I really think that people need to understand the amount of work. And that our people do and the expertise that we have in creating this document and putting it together.
Sure.
And that is attributable to David
Yeah,
primarily and his people.
Absolutely. It takes hours just to read it, like you mentioned. So creating it is definitely a great multiple of that. So it does take a good bit of effort to put this together, no doubt. And, to corroborate what Ms. Boche is saying, not all school districts, not all governmental entities put this together themselves. There are situations where auditors, provide assistance and things like that. So it is truly a testament to, this organization and this staff that they're able to put this together. So
Thank you.
definitely.
I just
And
wanted to.
I congratulate you guys as well. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boche. Anyone else? So I guess we need a motion to accept the report into the minutes, the
I'll make a
financial
motion
compliance
that we
report.
accept the report.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Warner, seconded by Mr. England. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you again, Mr. Fernandez, for your excellent job and many hours of work, and thank you, Mr. Simon. Okay, next item on the agenda, school reports on lockdown drills. Ms. Voce.
Okay, in the revised statutes, there is a law that basically mandates that within the first 30 days at the beginning of every school year, that each school system must conduct an emergency drill, whether it be a fire drill or a lockdown drill, some type of a drill that fits or is under the school crisis management and response plan, and that we present that publicly to the board that this has been done. So I'm here today, and we didn't give you the individual reports from each school, but I have them right here, and it's to verify that all of our schools complied with that section of the law. Now, this year, it was the COVID year, so we were able to do what they call stay-in-place drills. So instead of evacuating the building or doing that initial lockdown procedure, if it was a fire drill or something, the students did not exit the building and go anywhere because of the COVID issue. The teachers then were instructed to go over with the students when we would call the drill. Here's what we would do if we were going to have the drill. You would exit here, you would go here, you would do this, you would do that, and go over the procedures with the students. So this was blessed or suggested by the state fire marshal to be in compliance with this law, and each of our schools did conduct this. We had one or two that went a little bit further than others, but they all did at least that stay-in-place drill and went over that, and everything worked out fine. We have a few schools that said, well, we're gonna do a little bit better in this area or a little bit better in that area, but they were conducted. They were in compliance with the state fire marshal regulations, and I'm just here to make that statement and present that to you. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Voce. Are there any questions?
Do we need a motion that we?
No,
that
it's
we got
just to, well, I don't know,
Report.
it wouldn't hurt. Why don't you, let's just go ahead and do it, that we do that.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept the report on lockdown drills.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Warner, seconded by Ms. White. Any further discussion? And Ms. Voce, I have one question. So
Mhm.
the lockdown drills has to be on a periodic basis, so many times per year?
You have to do one type of drill a certain number of times. Offhand, I don't really remember how often,
Okay,
but we've done, it may be one per semester or once a year for the lockdown drill.
mhm,
And then we have periodic fire drills.
mhm.
But whatever it says we have to do, we are in compliance. They do report that to Tommy Powell's office, and we keep track of those drills for the year.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Next item is a motion to incorporate the report of the October 13th, 2020 General Committee meeting into the minutes of the October regular monthly meeting. There's a motion by Ms. Jackson. Is there a second by Ms. Esaveda? Any discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Next item is a motion to approve the following minutes. The regular monthly meeting of September 22nd, 2020 is published on October 2nd, 2020. Is there a motion on the floor? Motion by Mr. England, seconded by Ms. Jackson. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Next is a motion to include the school board training certificates for 2019 regular monthly for 2019, yes, in the minutes of the October 2020 regular monthly meeting. There was a recommendation by the committee.
So
Is
moved.
there- Motion by Mr. Warner, is there a second? Mr. Egan? Any discussion? And the certificates are in your folder. Ms. Voce, did you want to say anything about this?
This is the yearly professional development training that all of the school board members by law must attend. And in the year 2019, it's done on a calendar year. It is reported to the School Board Association, which keeps track of that. And as part of the state law, it should be incorporated into the minutes and published that each of our school board members have complied with that training. And I think it's good for the public to know that just as every professional group is in need of professional development and training in what they do, so do our school boards. And the State School Board Association provides opportunities for our board members to receive this training, and then once it's complied with, issues that certificate that satisfies those particular requirements. So I just want everybody to know we have a very well-trained board here with the knowledge of policies and procedures, of what their powers and duties are, as well as the latest in legislative action and the latest in the financial conditions of school systems and what can and can't be done, so that when they make decisions and consider some of the propositions that we have, that they have the background and the training to make informed decisions.
Thank you, Ms. Voce. Any other discussion? There's a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Next item are personnel changes for the month of October, and we do need to approve the leaves of absence. Leaves without pay, actually. Right. The agenda said absence. It's leave without pay.
It's a leave of absence without pay.
Without pay, okay. There was a recommendation by the committee. I just want to say, I see some of our young former students coming back to teach with us, and it's very good to see that. Okay. Mr. England?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. England, seconded by Mr. Warner, and that's to approve the leaves without pay? Okay. Okay, any discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, next item is a motion to,
Ms. Dysart, before we move on, I know that you normally recognize the retirements,
oh, goodness.
so I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Voce. Yes. Okay, we do have 3 retirees. Robin Kalikas, who worked many years at Chelmsford High School, Gloria Rowe from Lacoste Elementary, and Jimmy Glorioso with our maintenance department. And I think he was a bus driver before that, too. Yeah, yes. Well, we want to thank Robin Kalikas, Gloria Rowe, and Jimmy Glorioso for their many years of service to the St. Bernard Parish School System, and we want to wish them a very happy retirement. And again, we say thank you for your years of service to the St. Bernard Parish school children. Miss Voce.
And, you know, we do, again, thank Gloria Rowe, custodian from Lacoste Elementary. Robin Kalikas, I'm sure you remember, not only was she a school secretary, but as you went to all the performances at the Cultural Arts Center, she would volunteer her time collecting the tickets and working with those groups. And if you listen to some of the teachers at Shelmet High School, she's the person that made sure all of the time was recorded properly, and she did an excellent, excellent job. So we're sorry to see her retire, but we know that she's still going to be around, and she's contributed a great deal to the operations at Shelmet High School. Jimmy Glorioso came to us a little bit later in his career, drove a bus for us a while. The kids loved him as he drove the bus, and then he worked a time with us in the maintenance department, did an excellent job. So we're sorry to see him retire as well, but as we all get to that point in life, we wish all of them a very happy retirement and know that their hearts are still with us in many ways.
Thank you, Ms. Voce. Anyone else? Okay, we didn't vote on this yet, right?
You
Yeah,
did
we-
vote
yeah,
on the
we did
leave of
before
okay.
you went,
Right,
okay,
right.
and then we went back for
Yeah.
the retirements, okay. All right, next item is a motion to approve the administration's request to advertise a request for proposals for telecommunication services. There was a recommendation by the committee. Ms. Esteveda makes the motion, seconded by Ms. Jackson. Any questions or discussion? There being none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Next item is a motion to approve the administration's request for permission to advertise for bids for spices, seasonings, Class 2, cereal, dried beans and crackers, Class 3, frozen foods, Class 5, meat and meat products, Class 6, poultry and eggs, Class 7, seafood products, Class 8, canned goods, Class 9, for the period of January 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020. There was a recommendation by the committee, and we have with us tonight Ms. Bloom. If there are any questions, is there a motion on the floor at this time? Motion
So
by
moved.
Mr. Warner, seconded by Ms. White. Any questions or discussion? Okay, there being none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Bloom, for staying with us tonight. We appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda are items to be placed on the agenda of the next committee meeting. Anyone have anything tonight to place on the agenda for next committee meeting? Okay, and if not, you have it before the next committee meeting to place any items on the agenda. Next item are superintendent's recommendations. Ms. Voce.
Just a few observations. As we know, this storm is, if it goes according to projections, is headed our way. So in preparation for that, we've been told that there will be tropical storm force winds by tomorrow afternoon, at which point it's not safe then to put buses on the roadway, on the road under those conditions. So we have closed our school buildings tomorrow. However, since we do have the technology for the students at this point, we're going to have it be a remote learning or virtual day. And hopefully that will, satisfy the instructional requirements for tomorrow. So all students who, of course, all students at the high school level already have the devices and total access. Students in grades 3 through 8, if they have internet access at home, were sent home today with a Chromebook for use. And our teachers have done an incredible job, and y'all, none of this would have been possible without our teachers over the last few months doing a tremendous effort in preparing the lessons and being trained on all of the new software platforms and such. And those activities are in our learning management system, so those students will be able to access those tomorrow as they are home. We did not send Chromebooks home with pre-K through second grade. We felt that it was only going to be a day or two, and with students that young, we didn't want to send them home with the devices and potential hotspots or anything, and have their parents try to work with them to get them connected, because they're not used to doing that from home. So we've provided learning experiences for them in a paper and pencil format and sent that home with them today to do that work tomorrow. So 3rd through high school should be on a virtual platform, and then pre-K through 2 have assignments to do. If this extends beyond tomorrow, so we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. If the storm does come our way and hit, then we'll know. If we do have to do something for Thursday, we'll continue in that format as long as we have power. You know, people say, well, if the power goes out, how is that going to help? But if the power goes out, then of course people are excused from that, and we have other things to consider beyond that. But as long as we're able to continue to provide those educational experiences in that format, then we're ready and we have done that. So just want to make sure that everybody understands that our school buildings are closed tomorrow, but learning continues to take place. We'll see what happens tomorrow with the trajectory of this storm and make a decision as to Thursday sometime tomorrow and let everyone know at that time.
So we don't have to worry about making a makeup day.
Well, tomorrow then we will not have to worry about doing that as a makeup day. We'll have to see what Thursday then brings. All right, the other thing, November 3rd, which is next Tuesday, which is Election Day, our schools are closed, students are off, but teachers will be here for professional development on that day. And by law, of course, we cannot have school on a federal or any election day that takes place because our school grounds are used as polling places, and state law prohibits students attending classes while the public is coming in and out with an election. So we made that a PD day for our teachers while the students are off, because mostly all of our schools accommodate all of the citizens of the community and are the polling places throughout St. Bernard Parish. And November 8th, which is Sunday, November 8th, the Veterans Day Parade. Just want to reiterate, I think I mentioned this last time, but our elementary students will be participating in the Veterans Parade Sunday morning on November 8th. So people can hopefully line the route a little bit, and there'll be a brief little ceremony at the Veterans Memorial there, right next to the local government building.
At what time's the parade for?
Well, I think around 9:30, they're gonna be lining up. I think the parade starts at 10.
Okay.
And it's just going from the old IHOP, you know, Hickory right there, to the complex. Yeah, it's short.
Okay, are there any questions?
Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Voce, and we hope everybody stays safe, and we hope to be back in school Thursday, if not Friday, and God bless us all, and hopefully all will be well and safe. Okay, is there excuse me, a motion to adjourn? Motion
Second.
by Mr. Campbell, seconded by Ms. Aceveda. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you and good night.